Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel, wherever you're watching from. Hope you're having a good day, a good week. And in today's video, I just wanted to show you very important stuff regarding Bitcoin. And a lot of people say that Bitcoin is just a bubble. Still, after 17 years, people still believe that Bitcoin is just a bubble. So let's jump right in. Whenever someone tells you that, just show them this video right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, bubbles have three characteristics. They tend to be a single cycle, boom, then bust, relatively short in duration, and crash back down to the baseline, which is either zero or the inflation-adjusted place of where they were before the boom. The Dutch tulip mania was like this. So was the housing bubble. So was the dot-com bubble. And so was pretty much every other bubble ever. So what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin, it's actually hard to see the price cycles because it's increased such radically in value over time. So we're going to use a logarithmic scale to look at what it looks like on a price cycle where you go from $0 to $1, then to $10, $100. It's called the logarithmic scale, which is often used for assets with this level of upside. So in the first price cycle, Bitcoin went from about 5 cents up to $32, back to $2. Now, if we were having this debate in 2011, you could be forgiven for believing it met two of the three criteria of a bubble, except that it landed at a price that was 40 times as high as the 5 cents that it started at. What happened next? It didn't go to zero. It went up to $1,200, came back to 92, meeting now none of the criteria of a bubble. Then what did it do? Well, it zoomed up to $19,000, down to $3,200, meeting, once again, none of the criteria of a bubble, 35 times the previous low price. Then it zoomed up to $69,000, down to $15,000, once again meeting none of the criteria of any historical bubble we have ever seen. Bubbles look like the bottom left of this chart. They do not look like the orange line. So what does look like that orange line? Well, it turns out every high-value asset that has ever become a trillion-dollar industry or asset looks just like that on a logarithmic chart. Apple, Amazon, Netflix, even gold, when you zoom out, goes through the same pattern. And all of these assets do it for the same reason. The marketplace is trying to figure out how big of a deal is this asset, how big of a deal is this industry, and what role will this commodity, technology, or company impact in the global world. Bitcoin's doing the same thing for the very same reason, which is the opposite of how any bubble in human history has ever behaved. So why is it valuable? Well, for the first time in human history, we have a borderless, predictable, and scarce monetary asset. So what do I mean? Borderless because Bitcoin is decentralized. It's not controlled by any country, company, or anybody. And that means Bitcoin is not like fiat currencies, which is nothing but a bunch of fiefdoms all over the world. And borderless because you don't have to have the government's permission to cross a border with more than $10,000. Bitcoin is a decentralized and borderless currency that is valuable because the world has never had a universal worldwide currency that worked like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is also predictable, absolutely, completely unlike the Federal Reserve, where even the experts get it wrong every time. And having a money that is absolutely predictable is a very valuable characteristic. Also, Bitcoin is scarce, truly scarce. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin, ever, as opposed to fiat, which is as infinite as a politician's promises.
So very, very strong case here for Bitcoin. I don't know who that person was. If someone knows, drop it in the comments. Very, very good explanation here about why Bitcoin is so valuable. And there's so many characteristics that just prove why Bitcoin is a better money than dollars and other fiat currencies, because other fiat currencies are infinite. Nobody knows how many we're going to have. The government can just print them out of thin air and decrease their value. Bitcoin is capped, it is fixed supply. There will never be more than 21 million, and that is a very strong form of money. The next thing I want to show you here, it is the deflationary nature of Bitcoin. So in 2016, if a home was 288,000, you needed 664 Bitcoin to buy that home. In 2020, if the price was 300,000, you would need 45 Bitcoin. And in 2024, $400,000 home, only 6.6 Bitcoin. And that is amazing because as time goes by and the price of Bitcoin appreciates, you need less and less of it to buy something. And that applies to anything. It applies to gas, it applies to goods, it applies to services, it applies to anything. So anything compared to Bitcoin goes down in price, and anything compared to the US dollar goes up in price because the government keeps inflating the economy with that paper. Another very, very good explanatory video here. Take a look.
If a Bitcoin was the size of a quarter, all 21 million of them would fit inside a single shipping container. But to fit the dollars the Fed prints on average every day, you'd need 72 shipping containers. Each year, you'd need 26,280 containers. And to fit what they've printed in the last decade, well, you'd need a lot more than that.
So this video is very, very good explanation about how Bitcoin is so easy to transport. You don't need to send it physically. You can just send it effortlessly to anyone in the world. And compared to the money that the government prints, they print so much that you can't even fit it in a container. That's how Bitcoin is superior to any other form of money. And the last thing here, and I'll wrap it up with this, a very, very good video by Nayib Bukele from an interview, the president of El Salvador. Let's take a listen.
The Federal Reserve is nothing federal and has no reserves, right? So, they do print more money and they rob you from your wealth and from your savings, and that's immoral. But it's not only immoral, but it also destroys some basic economic principles, like, for example, saving or your pension. From these financial publications, they will print lies. But you know, there's something special about lies is that they don't last for long. They don't last long. The Federal.
So just basically, he is very, very right here that the Federal Reserve just prints money out of thin air and devalues your savings, creates inflation, printing money, and that is just very, very bad for everyone in the economy. At this point, they have nothing else to do but print money, and it's just going to get worse for everyone. That is why Bitcoin is the superior money and not financial advice. Always do your own research. But that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like the content, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.